You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nicole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.
Oh, yeah. Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, October 26th. Today is National Financial Crime Fighter Day, National Tennessee Day, National Mule Day. Shout out to all the mules out there. National Mincemeat Day and National Pumpkin Day. And thank you for joining and getting high at 9 with us. It's also high noon on the East Coast. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe to us on all social media platforms, especially right here at YouTube. Just hit that subscribe button. We're live every Monday through Friday on YouTube and audio only on Clubhouse. And if you are joining us in Clubhouse, you can also participate in the show by raising your hand if you have a brief comment on the story most recently presented. But without further ado, we're going to start the show off the right way. That's right. We're going to start off with a cannabis business consultant who is an industry veteran and as well as a bullshit buster, a self-proclaimed general overall data bitch, boasting over 13 years in the regulated market space, but with deep roots in the legacy industry. Roots so deep that she did some time for a cannabis crime. That's right. It is none other than the data bitch herself, Nicole West.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, Jason. My story today is actually coming out of Benzinga. I'm wearing my shirt for funnies, but my hoodie today is Detroit versus everybody, because my headline today is coming out of Michigan in regards to the potential of there being an illicit market filtering into the regulated market. So unannounced inspections are coming, says the Michigan cannabis regulators, in a move to end the illegal activity. Michigan Cannabis Regulatory Agency has planned to crack down on illegal cannabis products that are somehow entering the legal program and causing an oversupply and a price drop issue. The state's top marijuana regulator, Brian Hannon, announced on new initiatives to reporters in the media that media roundtable on Tuesday at the CRA's licensing headquarters, reported by Crane's Detroit Business. Hanna, an ex-intelligence officer in the U.S. Army, was chosen by Governor Gretchen Whitmer to replace the agency's founding director, Andrew Brisboe, in September. As weed prices in the state dropped, the pressure from legal operators started to build up, which resulted in Brisboe's resignation. That's not why he resigned. And support for Hanna, also, who is a former Michigan State Police crime analyst, to take over the role as it grew. Over the last 18 months, cannabis prices significantly have dropped, hitting $109 per ounce in September compared to the $203 per ounce a year ago, which is about industry average once you fully saturate a market for a majority of the average weed, not the quality stuff. But yes, that is a standard price. While Hanna confirmed that the industry is being oversupplied due to illegal products entering the program, he said the extent of these operators is unclear. Anybody cutting corners or cheating, we want to expose that, Hanna says. But we don't know what we don't know and at what point it's coming into the supply. While the cultivation of the illegal market plants also grew by at least 120% in a year, licensed market inventory by pounds increased more than 400% and in the same period, indicating that the illegal cannabis is in the game. How legal weed is entering into the regulated market, you might ask. Well, Andrew Sereno, CEO of Manchester-based cultivator Glacial Farms LLC, told Cranes last week that it is extremely difficult for regulators to confirm how much of the product was cultivated legally because of the wide range of output and skills among the growers. It is very easy for a bad actor or grower to harvest some plants and then have outside material enter in at that point, Serena says. Who is to say whether they actually had 20, 40, or 60-pound harvest? One possible explanation is the cannabis distillates, refined resins used to make edibles, tinctures, and vape cartridges that are manufactured in illegal states at a much lower price and sent to Michigan, where it's distributed in a regulated market at a hefty price tag. I will say some of the regulated markets actually are probably producing it at a much cheaper price, ironically enough. An anonymous retailer told Crane that the liter of illicit distillate costs about $500, while in Michigan regulated market, it's being sold for around $1,700 to $1,200 for a profit. Hannah added that the agency has signed up half a dozen agents to carry out random inspections and a new lab scientist to help spot check products and confirm yield in an effort to track down the irregular output. One of the other things that has been an issue has been the manipulation of surveillance cameras. So one of the most reoccurring issues facing the agency is the misuse of surveillance cameras. Under the CRA regulations, cannabis operators must continuously record and store for up to 30 days. Most states it's 90 for any product being grown, sold, and presented in the facility. The agency discovered that the cannabis companies are erasing these shots at random points on a regular basis and ending up with only a $5,000 fine. I thought that was kind of crazy that the fine itself was only $5,000 for erasing your camera footage or it being like basically disappearing. While Hannah didn't share the other details of the plan to put an end to these issues, the cannabis industry did say that the public industry stakeholders would be informed of the new regulations and busts sooner rather than later. I definitely do want to say that I think that this is important that, obviously that we do regulate and properly regulate. But I want to make sure that Michigan isn't missing the mark or the reality. The industry has been evolving there for a couple of years now. And the race to the bottom at this point with science and agriculture, where it is happening rapidly. Majority of these manufacturers and facilities are bringing people in that already know what the fuck they're doing. And there's a lot of people in the industry that already know what they're doing and are able to bring the price down drastically and also yields up drastically as well. To boot, there was a lot of people in Michigan that were already producing and already growing cannabis. So while I do agree that there's probably illicit product getting brought into the market, I would say that there's a lot of this is due to the fact that Michigan is finally producing, as well as the distillate price. If anybody's ever seen how easy it is once you get all the equipment to turn hundreds and hundreds of pounds of product, it's crazy easy and it's super cheap to fucking do. And the weed is so cheap and so abundant right now. The idea that you would be able to produce it for that price makes sense. So, whether or not this is a fully illicit market products or not, I'm not sure, but I definitely will say that a lot of this has to do with the fact that the prices are going down, down, down. And you're not just going to find the illicit market doing this. You're going to find the regulated market doing it as well. Super excited to hear what everyone else has to say on the stage. And I'm Nicole West, getting high at 9 with y'all.
I think the key thing you said there, Nicole, was the prices are going down, which means the fines are going to go up. Yep. The state needs to make that money.
Prices going down, fines go. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I just think that this governing body is going after this, trying to tackle this problem in the entire wrong way, in my opinion.
How would you think they should Jason?
Well, they should be going after the illicit market. Instead, their whole focus is only in regards to the monitoring their cameras, making sure everyone's cameras are working. When you have these people that are trying to do the right thing and operate a business, and they're not regulating on the trap industry, they're only regulating on the regulated industry.
I would agree with you on that, and that's what California did, didn't they?
Exactly.
All the
Same thing. Same thing with New York.
Yeah.
I mean, realistically, though, the idea of going into the trap, it is such a more confusing part. Where if they're giving you a license, right? Like I grasp what you're saying, but if the government is giving you a license and saying follow X, Y, and Z, it is so much easier for them to properly regulate something that they've given rules to than figure out whose door they have to kick in. So
I get it, but at the same time, they get a lot of money to do a lot of different types of things, and I just
but
feel
that's
like
not. But that's not the same government. That's a different government. This is the government body that's job is to regulate licensed businesses. Their job is not to kick down doors. That's the DEA. That's a bunch of other agencies. Those are different cops. You're talking about the wrong cops. The cops we're talking about are licensing cops. They're like one step above file clerks. Like
one step above a file clerk.
they're file clerks with guns, guys. Like it's not the same kind of police. And I need you guys to understand that it's not the same kind of cops. It's like saying that the agriculture cops need to go after the illicit market. You're using the wrong pesticides, bro. They don't give a fuck.
And the trap lives another day.
Yes, exactly.
But my point is that that's not their job. They're not regulating that because that's not their department.
I mean, when you say that cannabis sales are their department, and then all of a sudden now cannabis sales, because they're not in the regulated market, aren't their department, I just
no. Cannabis sales are not their department. Licensed cannabis businesses are their department.
If everybody stuck to just doing their job, would anything really get done?
If you ever expected anybody in the government to do anything more than half of what their actual job was, you missed the mark on what country we live in.
Yes.
If you think that they're
you
going to do more than half
expectations.
of whatever their job is, they're going to do half, and their job is licensed businesses. So they're doing half of that. Like no government agent is ever going to go above and beyond what the fuck they're asked to do. You want to talk about union work? Talk about government union work. Like 5 o'clock.
Oh yeah,
I'm out.
Not to mention that I got a nice long lunch break. I got a few other breaks, and basically now my work day is only a half day.
So you're saying Hollywood created that overtime cop that's like working around the clock trying to catch that guy?
Well, and granted, there are some cops that are like investigators that are obsessed. You know what I mean? And like that's not. Some of those cops might be fucking coming after some of the people in Michigan. You know what I mean? Like those people that are like the illicit market. But like
they're not going to do that.
Most of those people exist though. Even in the Hollywood world, most of those people exist because like somebody in their family died or something. You know what I mean? Like that vigilante is because it like something fucking hurt and affected you. Like most of those cops aren't just like, I'm a good fucking cop and I'm going to do this because this is the right thing. Like, no, like your aunt got shot at something. And for the rest of your life, you're going to spend your time devoted to figuring out why.
If you're down in Virginia, it's motherfuckers that got bullied in high school, never did anything, and then now you're a sheriff's deputy pulling over all the black people.
100%, and that's an emotional trauma, just like similar, but not,
in some way.
I had a cop one time. Go ahead, Mandy. Go ahead.
I would say the former therapist in me agrees with Nicole, and also, it's usually just some sort of path, like an attempt to right a wrong in your past, or to have control over your environment or power in your environment.
I mean, I got pulled over by a cop one time who proceeded to tell me that his whole life was ruined because of marijuana. His whole life.
And that's why he's a cop.
I mean, that's what he told me. He was so serious.
He was born in a Hempfield.
What a great way to end my story. Whole life being ruined by weed. I hope that cop's tongue was green as well.
It was.
We're going to go ahead and jump to our next correspondent, the dopest dad on the street, Rico Lamitte. He's also the founder of Cannavision and the guy who you'll catch backpedaling so that he doesn't trip over his little baby Zozo. What are you up to today? What do you have for us, Rico?
Backpedaling our ass. Thank you, Nicole, for yet another fantastic intro, and happy early worldwide Howl at the Moon night to all the lovers of fur, neck biting, and outdoor rear-mounted animalistic sex out there. Although tonight's new moon may not offer the best of howling conditions, we nonetheless hear you and wish you all a safe and happy hunting. My headline today is from Reuters. Germany to legalize cannabis use for recreational purposes. Germany! Because copious amounts of beer and partying help us all forget about what happened yesterday. I've got a great news story coming out of Berlin this morning. Chancellor Olaf Scholz officially announced plans to legalize recreational cannabis, making Germany the second member of the European Union to do so. Mainstream news outlets have fawned over rumors and speculation leading up to Germany becoming the first major EU nation to legalize, all but forgetting Malta was the first overall in December 2021. Now it's official. The small Mediterranean archipelago fully expects to return to its previously held status of beautiful countries people vaguely remember existing but don't know why. German Health Minister Karl Lauterbach announced personal acquisition and possession up to 20 to 30 grams of cannabis would be made legal and presented a cornerstone paper on planned legislation to regulate controlled distribution and adult recreational consumption. The news follows Germany's coalition government reaching an agreement last year to introduce legislation during its 4-year term to allow controlled cannabis distribution to licensed shops. However, Lauterbach did not give a timeline for a finalized plan, sparking unfounded rumors of the health minister being just another lazy stoner, unable to commit to deadlines. With half of my army brat childhood spent in Deutschland, I must say today's news brings great joy to my heart and a newfound desire to soon return. Though Oktoberfest 2022 has already come and gone, another year of advancement in iPhone camera technology guarantees the 2023 introduction of the crossfade to Bavarian Hofbrauhauses will be fucking phenomenal. My flight to Munich and Airbnb have already been booked. I'm Rico Lamitte, dopest dad on the street, and you are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour. Prost!
So wait, legal, it was going to get legalized and then it was not going to get legalized. And now it's back to being going to get legalized. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. This
All
morning they announced the officials announced it. Rumors, speculation. Heidi Klum went out there and closed the motherfucking deal with Snoop Dogg. It was wild. It's been a wild year in Germany, man. Berlin is turning up.
Oh, so they said that they were going to legalize, and then they paused it, and now they're going back on it. So now, do we expect that there's going to be another story tomorrow saying that someone is backtracking in Germany?
I don't know, man. I don't know. Maybe somebody will give them amnesty, and it'll all be forgotten.
You know,
I mean,
go ahead, Nicole.
No, you go for it. Go for it.
Every time I hear of anybody anywhere legalizing or deciding not to legalize, I just can't help but ask myself, what happened? What is everybody so afraid of that we just legalized it globally? Like, what are we so afraid of? Let's just, I don't know. Every single day, I think
we have to reclassify what the UN. Well, we have a UN issue, right? To start, there's a classification for the United Nations as far as cannabis is concerned, if I'm not mistaken, on like a global level. That would be a part of kind of like that conversation that would have to be had. But then we also have to consider people that are in charge of that kind of stuff.
Maybe we should just start a campaign to defund the United Nations.
Yeah, we have international treaties.
Presidential.
There we go, Jason.
Yeah,
no one's going to come after you for that.
Exactly. Defund the UN.
We still have international treaties that date back over 100 years where people had their head up their ass about drugs, especially Indian hemp and marijuana. So we still have to fight the ideology in places where we don't even know the names of those countries.
That's just deep, man.
Well, and like who's really in control? Like who has the most, and like the defund the UN conversation, like that's a fucking big one.
The Bilderberg Group.
Okay, so
conversation though, I'm very down for that conversation, Jason.
Yeah, I mean, a big shout out to Germany. I can't wait to go out there next year, come Oktoberfest. It shall be my return. I know it's very different than when I was living there back in 88 to 93, but it's a very, very progressive nation, believe it or not. All the Nazi bullshit aside, and I hope they stay as progressive as they have been under Angela Merkel, and you can smoke weed now. So they didn't specify like 20 to 30 grams of what though. It said up to 20 to 30 grams. So they said 29, and they said flour or extracts. They just said 20 to 30 grams is now legal to have. To acquire
it's flour. The way the regulations were written in Germany, it's flour. They're very clear about it. The processing is not allowed on a adult use access level, not an access until they actually have regulations to making it. No, that's not a part of their actual decriminalization portion. I did just look up because I was a little confused. Apparently in 2020, 53 members of the UN signed a drug policy org that said there's a vote, 27 to 25. So 27 were in favor. And one abstained, and they opened the door recognizing the medical and therapeutic potential of cannabis, although use for non-medical, non-scientific purpose will continue to remain illegal. So in 2020, they changed the regulation and added it as a medical thing to the UN's regulation. So, I mean, we made steps 2 years ago. Is it possible to push harder on the UN? I think it'd be harder to defund them than to convince them, my personal opinion.
I don't know. I think it may be easier to defund them since America is probably the largest funder of the United Nations.
Who is? That's a good question.
We are. We provide over half of the budget for the UN.
I have a Jao Zabregas from the audience. He said, search for the R&D article. So my story was actually, we covered a lot of the details in the legislation that were coming out through rumors last week with Omar Figueroa. You can check out our YouTube channel, check out the replays on there. You'll see it. He had a lot of the details in there. And today with the health minister and his announcement this morning, in the undefined timeline of when everything's going to be finalized, it was more so to put the rumors to rest. And they also did revise the amount. They were saying initially that they were going to have up to 20 grams you're allowed to have, but they increased that number. And there's also a supplemental story. You guys check that one out by Kyle Yeager on Marijuana Moment, where he does go like line by line for all the stuff that is proposed. So you guys can check that one out. The Reuters ones that I covered was more high level.
So $14.1 billion per year the United States puts into the UN. If we are the largest funders, I think we'd have a better chance of not defunding it, instead actually just making it legal, because we are the majority funders of the UN. And if we legalize it here, if we deschedule in this country, I think there would be a chance for that federal,
then
or
we
for that
could
UN
force
version.
them all.
If Donald Trump becomes president, I don't think we're going to do that. And this is no joke. This is no like a dig at anybody like on a political level or anything. But Donald Trump like specifically said he wants to defund the UN and he wants to stop submitting any money to them until everybody pays their share. So
Yes,
just think
I do.
that.
I do remember that. I do remember that.
Okay, I feel like mine was just as good.
It was fantastic. You should do a side by
It
side.
was.
You're gonna keep this party going.
Oh
Yeah.
So up next, it's the longest continuously operating retailer in the industry, known for his affinity of smoking the best weed in the world. He's also known as Gucci Blanco to the Mar-a-Lago staff, White Gucci to the Delta 8 hustlers in Detroit, but we know him also as the highest Republican, always supporting political parties that you get the most pissed off by. Coming up next, Jason Beck. What do you got for us?
Oh yeah. Good morning, Rico. Thank you so much for that. Hope everyone is having an amazing hump day today. Because I can tell you who's not is there's 2 Ohio men charged with stealing nearly $800,000 for fake medical marijuana businesses. Warren County prosecutor David P. Fornsnell announced Tuesday that 2 Ohio men have been indicted on fraud charges surrounding a fake medical marijuana operation. Fornsnell said Aaron Pittman, 34, of Morrow, and Ryan C. Goldschmidt, 39, of Cincinnati, have been indicted on the following counts: 4 counts of aggravated theft, 3 counts of unauthorized use of property, 3 counts of telecommunications fraud, 2 counts of grand theft, and 3 counts of unlawful securities practices, and 1 count of engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity. The men are accused of making misrepresentations to multiple victims, to include them to invest in a medical marijuana grow operation that Pittman and Goldschmidt claimed to be operating in California, as well as a CBD oil cartridge manufacturing business. I've heard this story before. The charges came as a result of a lengthy investigation by the Ohio Department of Commerce, Division of Securities, and the Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation, Forensic and Accounting Division. According to court documents, Pittman and Goldschmidt are alleged to have defrauded investors through multiple business entities, including Oak Street Group, GGB Assets, and Excelsior Leasing. Neither Pittman nor Goldschmidt are licensed to sell securities to investors in the state of Ohio or anywhere else. Forsnell said documents showed the two men misrepresented to investors that Goldschmidt was the attorney and that they would get 100% of their money back plus an additional distributions of profit. Investors need to ask lots of questions and do extra research before investing any money, said Ohio Securities Commissioner Andrea Schilt. Investors can call our investor protection hotline at 877-683-7841 to find out if the person is licensed to sell securities and if the product is properly registered. Approximately $796,000 and $714 in investor funds were deposited into Warren County bank accounts controlled by Pittman and Goldschmidt, Forsnell said. Officials said the money was used for personal expenses of Pittman and Goldschmidt, and in some cases they diverted funds to pay off prior lawsuits or make payments to their friends. The Meigs County Sheriff Office said it was investigating Pittman on a different scheme when some of the investors said they had been defrauded by Pittman and Goldschmidt relating to a marijuana grow operations in California. The Meigs County Sheriff's Office then referred the matter to the Ohio Bureau of Investigation for further investigation, and now you all know where it all ended up at. That's right, these two men being charged. Well, I'll tell you what, the investor fraud is a real thing, and I don't want to joke about it because it is not a good thing, and it definitely is going to damage the cannabis industry with our low levels of credibility already in the investor world. So this is something that I do hope that Ohio does take seriously, much more seriously than they do in selling eighths. But nonetheless, I will digress. And this is Jason Beck reporting for High at 9 News.
I mean,
how many companies do you think this is going to happen to?
I mean, I think it's happened to a lot of companies.
Yeah,
just whether or not people have been arrested for it is a totally different thing.
Yeah.
I mean, look at Enron.
Well, in this industry, I deal with almost every case I get involved with. There's some lying sack of shit on one side of the case or the other, sometimes on both sides, maybe even my client. And at this point, until you get into a position where someone can scrutinize your records, it's lie all day long. That's the game that's being played here. Oh, I can run this company, but I got to buy my girlfriend a BMW and go to Ensenada. I mean, the inside of these companies that are being piss poorly run start with lion sacks of shit raising money. And because they can grow weed, they think they can run one of these businesses.
Hold on. Hold on, Dale. So you're saying that you believe that they can grow weed?
Well, that's what they say.
Okay. All right. Just
Everybody
sure
I've ever represented
page.
that's a cultivator grows the best weed in the world. Unfortunately, you give them a business to run and they can't find their ass with both hands.
You should ask anyone that claims that. Ask them if I smoke their weed, and then when they tell you that I don't, then you know that they're full of shit, Dale.
Yeah.
I assume they're full of shit because their mouth is moving.
Oh.
So yeah. one of the things that I think is kind of astounding to me, like my like bread and butter over the past few years has been private equity or finance companies hiring me to go look at these businesses to decide whether or not they bullshitting you. And 9 times out of 10, they are. I've audited over 300 pitch decks. I've approved 2 for loan. 302 of them have made it through where I've said I would give these people money as an operator, as a due diligence person. I would, yes, these people deserve your funds. 302 of them. That is an astoundingly low percent. But the amount of companies that don't hire me or someone like me to go actually just look at this fucking business and are just like writing fat checks to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to become a fucking CB millionaire. Like it's sad. But I think in a lot of these situations, like how fucking dumb are people with their money?
Really dumb.
I mean,
and I guess
it's
the more
burning
money
a hole
you
in
get,
their
the dumber you
pocket.
get.
It's burning a hole. It's burning a hole in their pocket, and they got to spend it, so they got to give it to somebody. Whoever has the slickest tongue is going to win the bread.
One of the sadder parts, though, is the ones that do the least amount of due diligence are the ones that can afford to lose the least, right? Like the ones that hire me are the ones that could actually afford to throw $1 million at the fucking wall and not care, but they won't. The ones that don't hire me are the ones that can't afford the $100,000 that they just gave you for your business that's going to fucking tank. And I will tell them that you're going to just lose $100,000 in 2 years, and then they're not going to give you money. It's my bad, but it's your bad too.
I mean, I mean,
well, due diligence is where a lot of these deals fall apart, Nicole. I have a lengthy due diligence questionnaire I send to the other side, and it starts with "Show me the money, bitch," because everybody's got money until you show me the account, and then if you got an account, show me how it's connected to the person who's trying to buy this.
And I swear to God, if you show me a picture of money, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind on you.
The bitch was slipped in there like an ad lib.
yeah, exactly.
Show me the money, bitch.
Show me the money. That's right. That's right. Secure the bag.
But you're not a fan of people like sending you a picture showing you that they have a duffel bag full of cash.
Well, I've had them send me a picture of a screenshot from an account that's got money in it. It's like, okay, what the fuck does that mean?
It's a proof of funds,
Show me
Dale.
how
It's a
the
proof of
account's
funds.
connected to the person buying this, and we'll talk. Otherwise, somebody sent you a screenshot to get laid that night, and you're trying to raise money off it. Just get the fuck out of here.
Send me a picture of your stack.
The defense didn't seem to work so well for Herschel Walker, though.
Or send me a picture of you holding the money next to your face, because that was necessary.
Just hold it to your ear like a cell phone.
Yeah.
All hunters.
That's how you
know what I mean.
Make sure you have your metadata attached to that picture, because you are about to get robbed.
Well, that's a great time for us to segue to our commercial. We got to follow that money. Let's pay a bill real quick. At True Classic OG, we live by one motto: stay true. We stay true to our legacy cut of True OG that's always fresh, piney, gassy, and delicious. We represent the spirit, hustle, and diversity of our great city of Angels. And we stay true to the spirit of this plant, doing everything in-house to ensure that you get the highest quality and consistency with every batch. And that's what's made us LA's favorite OG. True Classic OG. Stay true, Los Angeles. The thoughts and opinions and general shade thrown on the High at 9 News are those of the individual speakers, not those of any other speaker or its followers. Statements made do not constitute legal or accounting advice, and our speakers make no representation regarding the legal status of any substance in any country, area, territory, or its authorities. These expressed in this room do not establish fiduciary relationships. Our sponsors do not imply the constitute by endorsement by us, the expression of any opinion whatsoever, any speaker, or anyone on stage. If you're an easily offended person, the show's probably not for you. Also, fuck off.
Flying into LAX and you want to taste some of the best weed in the world? Then stop by LAXCC, the closest dispensary to LAX, located at 8332 Lincoln Boulevard and open from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week. Always make LAXCC your first stop when you touch down in LA and score like a winner. And don't forget to tell them I sent you and mention you'd like to get high at 9 for 10% off your full order.
Our next correspondent is the CMO of industry-focused event ticketing promotion platform that changed the game for better when Eventbrite literally and figuratively did not want any of that smoke. Event Hive, but also the co-host and founder of groundbreaking professional women in cannabis networking series, Blunt Brunch. I'm not sure if she'll even answer after I called her the co-host, but here she is. Delia Carrillo, what do you have for us this morning?
I'll be that co-host. Okay, today's article, it's by High Times, Arizonians benefiting from Biden's weed pardons. So in Arizona, more people with federal convictions for cannabis possession will benefit from the pardons recently announced by President Joseph Biden than past offenders from nearly every other state. This is according to a report from AZ Central. Now, as a reminder, Arizona legalized medical marijuana in 2010, then recreational marijuana 10 years later with the passage of Prop 207. This paved the way for hundreds of thousands of Arizonians to clear their criminal records of minor marijuana offenses. Now, the United States Sentencing Commission also shared an analysis report that found that there were more than 1,450 people from Arizona who were convicted of federal marijuana possession charges between 1992 and 2021. This is representing more than 20% of the estimated 6,500 such convictions affected by the pardons. In this analysis, it also shared that California is the only state with more people who will be pardoned under the executive action, with about 1,550 federal convictions for low-level cannabis possession. The only other state with more than 1,000 such convictions was Texas. They had 1,015. Now, the article did state it was not clear how many of those with federal marijuana possessions convictions also had other convictions that were not covered by the pardons. However, Arizona had the highest number of convictions for simple marijuana possession than any other state. It states that there was approximately 93% of 500 convictions during 2015, which resulted in prison sentences. Now, they did speak with Arizona NORML co-director, and he stated, his name is Jonathan Udell, an attorney with the Rose Law Group. He states that for a lot of people out there, I imagine this is a really welcome relief. I think there's a lot of people out there that really feel the sting of being branded a non-law abiding citizen. And this sends a very big message to those that you're not a bad person because you smoked a plant one time that grew out of the ground or possessed some grass in your pocket. Now, what I also found interesting was this analysis shared a breakdown of all citizen and legal alien federal offenders convicted of at least one count involving cannabis between 1992 to 2021. In that report, it said for Arizona that 41.3% of those individuals were white, 31.8% were Hispanic, and 23.6% were Black. It also showed that 78.5% were male compared to female. When I was diving into this to this report a little bit further, the lowest convictions with having only one person was Rhode Island, Puerto Rico, North Mississippi, and South Illinois. Meanwhile, thousands of federal convictions involving undocumented people in Arizona and those that are at the state level remain unchanged by Biden's executive action. If you actually look at the number of people who've been arrested for cannabis possession in America over the last number of decades, 6,500 is not even really a drop in the bucket. Now, since 2015, just over 4,000 undocumented people in Arizona were federally convicted for marijuana possession, which was the most of any other state. The article goes into sharing a bit more reports specifically about the Arizona Department of Public Safety. They also had a crime report which compiled and stated that more than 230,000 people were arrested for possession of marijuana between 2006 and 2020. I don't want to go too much deeper into the article. It also mentioned this past Monday, there was a activist group that including the Students for Sensible Drug Policy and DC Marijuana Justice and the Last Prisoner Project and Maryland Marijuana Justice. They did a demonstration outside of the White House. It also featured hip hop icons, Redman and M1 of Dead Prez. But going back to the Arizona component with this article, there was just a few other notations. These pardons likely won't result in mass prison releases nationwide because no one who's been federally convicted for simple possession of marijuana remained in custody by the end of January, the commission's analysis showed. It also doesn't remove a federal conviction from someone's criminal record, as Arizona's voter-approved expungement program does for the state, according to the Department of Justice website. So although it could lessen any stigmas associated with conviction, and in some cases restore a person's right to vote or help them obtain employment. And with that being said, I'm Adelia reporting for the High at 9 News Hour. Love to hear from my teammates over here.
Yeah, thank you for covering this, Adelia. I wonder how many of those convictions came from Maricopa County. It was a high, actually.
Maricopa County was one of the highest. It says 42% actually.
How much of Maricopa County is federal land?
That was Joseph Arpaio, Donald Trump's favorite sheriff.
Yeah, he used to make everybody wear pink underwear.
He was his modern day slavery. He put people out in fucking tents in the desert and made them do hard labor. Fuck that guy.
Well, it's always going to be 42% because Maricopa County, from a demographic perspective, is the largest county in the state of Arizona. So you're going to always get a greater percentage of individuals affected by their coming out of that county.
This is a crazy statistic. Maricopa County is comprised of 53% federal land, only 29% private land, 13% state land, and 5% tribal. That's nutty.
That is why that number is so high in there, is because of all the federal land, and so people are getting caught up by the national park rangers and getting tickets for weed.
Wow.
They were getting turned in by Sheriff Joe.
He doesn't. Sheriff Joe wouldn't patrol the federal area. That would be That would be federal police, customs, border patrol agents, anything like
He
that.
had his hand in everything back then. It's just like
I'm not
throwing
saying that they
people-
didn't work together. I'm just saying that that is not his jurisdiction. But nonetheless, we've got to go because she's a Florida-based entrepreneurial boss lady leading the charge for the ultimate cannabis lifestyle brand, Black Buddha Cannabis. Also the founder and CEO of Minorities for Medical Marijuana. Coming up next is none other than the Roz McCarthy.
Well, good morning, good afternoon. I'm so glad that Adelia covered that story because I'm covering a similar story, and this is important for us to continue covering these stories about the effects of President Biden and his stepping out on of this whole pardoning situation at the federal level, where the biggest issue is really at the state level. So this story is coming from the Dallas Morning News. It says, where did Biden's pardon of marijuana charges leave the hundreds of Texans in prison? So Texas ranks number 1 in the U.S. for most marijuana possession arrests. President Joe Biden pardoned federal marijuana possession convictions in early October, asking state governors to do the same. Where did that leave the hundreds of Texans in prison on state marijuana possession charges? Well, let's go through the numbers. As of October 21st, 265 people are serving prison time in Texas on state marijuana possession charges, according to data provided by the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. This figure represents people in prison only on possession charges and not concurrent charges of other types of crime, 265. It also does not include people serving jail sentences for misdemeanor charges in county jails, 265. According to the Texas chapter of the National Organization of Reform of Marijuana Laws, NORML, over 21,000 people were arrested in Texas last year, more than any other state, for possession. And possession arrests account for about 97% of all marijuana-related arrests in Texas. Of the 265 current inmates, 56 people were charged only with possessing marijuana, in the amount range of more than 4 ounces and less than 5 pounds. Of the current inmates, 136 were committed in the last 5 years, many because of probation or parole violations, a TDCJ spokesperson said. 3 people are serving sentences from convictions in the 1990s. Jax James, who is the executive director for Texas NORML, says this figure is infuriating. That causes real collateral consequences and it affects people for their life, she said. A record of drug possession commonly decreases a past offender's chances of getting jobs, housing, and education. So I pause right quick and I say 265 because you may have 265 people who are arrested. However, you have over, 21,000 people. You may have 265 people who are currently in jail, but 21,000 people were arrested and convicted or either have something on their record now that can affect them. And the collateral damage really needs to be addressed, right? So as we go further, arrest versus jail time. Although Texas arrested 21,000 people on possession charges last year alone, Varghese explained, most marijuana arrests are misdemeanor cases. What ends up happening in most cases is certainly something other than jail time. To go to jail on marijuana offenses, you really have to be doing something wrong. So the arrests, especially for first-time offenders and youthful offenders, usually end in dismissal fines, deferred adjudication, or probation. Bond violators, repeat offenders, offenders unwilling to attend diversion programs, or people with lengthy criminal histories are more likely to face prison time. Ultimately, it's not the crime of the century, whether it's a misdemeanor or felony. In misdemeanor courts, charges for driving while intoxicated and assault tend to take precedence over marijuana cases when resources and testing funds are limited. So it goes on more talking about, again, just the number of people that are going through the system. Also talking about the jurisdiction, about basically with Biden and making this kind of move at the federal level and pushing, Texas governors to do the same. In Texas, it goes through their county pardon. That they have a pardon system, and it has to go through and has to be approved. That has to be sorted out at the state level, and so that has not been, it's easier said than done. That has not taken place yet, and they're still going through that process. I'll just end this story by saying that there needs to be more time, more money, more resources, more eyeballs to expunging people's records, get the shit off so that you can repair and release people and not have to worry about this following them for years and years and years. I'm Roz McCarthy. I'm signing off for High News at 9. We love your feedback.
I wish we had one of the
Biden ain't
Texans here.
helping me.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I wish Liz Grow was on with us, or Stone.
Or
Split.
Stone.
Yeah, to comment on
Yeah.
this one. I think
Well,
it's sad
well,
part
I was-
is go ahead.
No, go ahead, Rico.
I was just gonna say I think the sad part about this is cannabis amongst the voters and the constituents of all these people is really not that big of a political issue, but the governors are making it political, and you're going to see a huge divide in people that are supporting the pardons rather than pushing back against them. You can see a clear divide between red and blue states.
I think this is like a what side of history are you on kind of moment, like what side, because being able to push this agenda and like if you're going to allow weed to exist in your state and like take that money, not pushing that makes you a piece of shit.
I think a lot of the folks I think a lot of the folks, they don't care what side of history they're going to be on, because they're just living in the moment. These are the same people that refuse to acknowledge.
I'm saying we get to see them.
There's only one side of history, okay? Just so you guys all know and understand this. There's only one side of history, and that's whoever wins, because that's who's going to write it.
Exactly, and that's why these red states don't want to acknowledge it. Like shit just getting happened. America needs.
I hate it so much. I hate it here.
Well, the other interesting thing about the article, it did identify that demographically the biggest folks that are getting pinched are the ages between 17 and 24 in the state of Texas. And so I kept saying the numbers 265, and I did that on purpose because we sometimes get baited in looking at like, oh my gosh, we have like the president said this and we're going to be able to get people out of jail. It's 265 people. The collateral damage of the years and years of the Texas police and policing people of color, and the things that sit on people's records, and that needs to be fixed as well. And so that's why, just don't forget that we have people that just historically have been harmed, and that just because we are seeing this issue now being front facing, that it's still, even if you do pardon 265 people, you got thousands and thousands of other folks that really need support. And so what we're trying to do at M4MM, and I know we have Lakeisha, our Project Clean Slate expungement National Director on, is identify those counties where people have historically been, have been arrested, have been for simple possession, and be able to challenge them to help us to expunge their records and get it cleared. And we can look at those numbers and know exactly what counties that we can go into and how we can be of help.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for that story, and thank you so much for the comments on that. Definitely mean a lot. And our Texas correspondents, chip in and hit us up with your thoughts on this one too. Up next, the co-founder of Camilla Cannagram and Women's Cannabis Competition and head of brand relations at Conception Nurseries, prides herself in being a crusader for female cannabis that loves showing the world weed, motherhood, and the executive lifestyle that comes with being an industry boss lady indeed do go together, despite what prohibitionists in the lamestream media might tell you. Up next, you know who it is, Mandy Tingler. What do you have for us today, Mandy?
Hey guys, so this one is all about what's happening down in Southern California in this election. So if you're a SoCal resident, pay attention here because we're talking to you if you're in Manhattan Beach or Hermosa Beach or El Segundo. We've got lots of places that need to pay attention with this initiative here. So voter agree South Bay cities, various cannabis legalization and taxation measures during the November 8th statewide general election. This choice to have cannabis stores in small beach towns comes just weeks after Redondo Beach overwhelmingly voted down a citizens' initiative during a special election. It's been a year-long campaign in the beach cities, with the proprietor of a Long Beach cannabis company enlisting residents in each city, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, and Redondo Beach, and El Segundo, to lead the petition signature gathering efforts that set the stage for the measures. If approved, the Citizens Initiative would repeal each city's ban on commercial cannabis, allow a few dispensaries to open in the towns. The one exception is in El Segundo, where the Citizens Initiative has been pulled from the ballot. After nearly a year of local government grappling to determine how to deal with the potential legalization, folks in the respective cities will end up deciding whether to allow dispensaries, how many, and where they can go. But with similar opposing choices in each city, voters may have a hard time determining which measures to align their values with. For some constituents, Elliot Lewis, CEO of marijuana chain Catalyst Cannabis Company, in late 2021, underwrote efforts to legalize cannabis and allow up to 3 dispensaries in each of the 4 towns. Voters in Redondo Beach, though, appeared to overwhelmingly defeat its citizen-led initiative last week. That city coupled Measure E with a recall for Councilman Zine Obaji Jr., which also failed in an October 19th special election. The Catalyst-led initiative, detractors said, was designed to give the company a leg up on getting a business license in each town, so that sent officials in those cities willing to come up with their own cannabis solutions. The petition ultimately pulled the citizens' initiative from the ballot in El Segundo, but it was too late to convene a council quorum to also pull a city-written ballot measure, so a cannabis measure remains in that city. Besides legalization measures, El Segundo and Hermosa Beach have also added cannabis taxation measures to their ballots should voters approve marijuana stores in those towns. Manhattan Beach, however, took a different tactic. That city put a measure on the ballot that opposes cannabis entirely, to both okay the citizens' initiative and keep the prohibition in place. And just this week, the Los Angeles County Democratic Party endorsed the pro-cannabis initiatives in all the beach cities, according to its website. The group opposes Manhattan Beach's city sponsor, per the site, which seeks to uphold the town's ban on marijuana. LA County means a Measure C on the ballot that would legalize commercial cannabis and impose taxes on weed sales in unincorporated areas. Here's a roundup of what the beach cities' measures look like. You definitely want to jump in and check those measures out all on your own, guys. But at the end of the day, vote pro-cannabis and pay attention to living in those beach towns. Your vote definitely matters. Read carefully. This is Mandy Tingler signing off for High at 9 News.
So I'm not sure if the Lewises are tunes in often. Elliot was out there. That was Elliot's fucking whole project. It was pretty amazing to see the political system be used to its fullest. The way that he went about pulling, like, it was brilliant. Like, his legal team is doing some fucking amazing, like, the way, yeah. And this is to me more than anything, like, you know, and he took his licks. He went on the fucking internet and was like, yeah, we lost, but like, we're winners, because the reality is that sort of shit can happen. Like, you can literally be a person and go out there and, like, literally pull all of the documents necessary, file all the paperwork necessary, knock on all the doors necessary to pretty much spearhead an entire initiative and vote. And then, like, it sucks that it lost, but, like, I mean,
but what I love about it is it brought so much.
Let's do it again. Let's do it again.
To the table, right? It brought so much.
Let's do it again in a new city.
Yep. And nice work, Elliot.
I gotta give props to the way that Elliot and Catalyst, the way he really changed the game, because a lot of efforts were being put forth by a lot of people before that, but before Elliot got online and started shouting and yelling and bringing people. First time I talked to him, when I brought him on our last show, I was like, dude, you need a fucking reality show. You need a fucking crew around you at all times. But it really did change the game, and I think a lot of people need to take note to the way he drew attention to their causes, and start doing the same. If you really care about something, use the power of the internet. If I mean, love him or hate him, like,
well,
Donald,
and the political system. He used the political system exactly how it's fucking written to be used, and like.
Right, but I was saying, like,
we need to play. We need to play their game. You know what I mean? Like, we need
exactly.
to.
You know, the best part.
And that
no,
it was
what I was saying, like, his use of the tools that we have was fucking brilliant. The way he brought attention to everything they were doing, he gained a ton of followers. He gained a ton of people that were riding for them that definitely would not have. And the people who were doing a lot of this shit, Jason, Nicole, everybody else. I think Adelia was down here on the ground too, like between like 2016 and 2018, when everything was changing around here. They weren't doing a lot of that stuff. A lot of the negotiations with the city were done behind closed doors, and people were always pissed off when the new regs came out. So a big shout out to them for doing what they did, for being as loud as they were, and fucking take note of that shit. Love him or hate him, whether it's Elliot Lewis or if it's Donald J. Trump. Like, look at how Donald Trump change the fucking game by using fucking Twitter, using the internet. Take notes, and if you guys got shit to get out there, man, use the tools you got. Period.
100%. You know, the one thing I really loved, the whole ground game, the whole grassroots style. It was very, very traditional in regards with like how Proposition 215 passed in 1996, and a whole other host of other voter initiatives that have gone throughout the state. And so I do want to applaud Elliot and Catalyst, their whole team, for their ground game, their groundwork in regards with this issue. Not to mention too, they have one of the things that I think, Nicole, if you can check real quick, is how much did the opposition spend? Because they got scared, they got real nervous, and they spent a shit ton of money. And I think that's where the real victory is.
They tried to blast him too. And it was funny because like a lot of the stuff were like, do you want this drug dealer for your like
exactly. They went hard.
Like pictures of him. Yeah,
it was
pictures of him like smoking a bong hit. And I'm like, I don't know that I'm offended by that. Like, all right, yeah, I'd vote for that guy. Like,
it was great.
Yeah, what a great story. What a great article. Thank you so much, Mandy, for bringing that to us. And I think that's kind of a great segue, you know, real serious ground game in the cannabis industry. Dale Schaefer, 35 years practicing attorney with 23 years in California cannabis space. Dale's a former member of Club Fed. He served 52 months for cultivating and intent to distribute to a handful of terminally ill patients. He started his cannabis adventures as the co-owner of the California Medical Research Center and is now the founding partner of Armada Law Corp. Dale, what do you have for us today?
Well, good morning, everybody. This comes out of Law 360, and the headline is Pot Company Goodness Sues Verano Over Thwarted Acquisition. Now, when you read this, it reads like horseshit. So I'm going to try to interpret some of the language they use in here. This is a contract dispute, and Goodness Growth, which is a Canadian public company, which changes some of this a bit, entered into a contract with Verano Holdings, which is a United States company. I don't know what type, but in February 1st of this year, they signed what is termed a binding agreement for Verano to wholly acquire Goodness Growth to get into the New York market. Now, I do these acquisitions regularly, and when you put together these binding agreements, they include a lot of provisions, including cooperation, things like that, ways to terminate these contracts if you don't get cooperation or other problems. So as I read through this, it looks like Verano's got a little light in the loafers here about going forward with this deal because the market took a shit. They call it market turmoil. Okay, what we all lived through was like the market shit the bed. So they were going to pay $412 million to acquire this company. All of a sudden, the market's not doing well. So the allegation is that Verano started dragging their feet. I call this a lack of cooperation. The contracts I put together, you're in breach because you're not cooperating as you try to get the company to be put together so that it can be understood, sold, transitioned, transferred, things like that. So Verano's story is that in this binding agreement, they had termination clauses that allowed them to get out of the deal. So they went back to Goodness Growth and said, look, we're going to get out of this deal unless you drop the price. And they told them to go pound sand. And of course, they sued each other. And as soon as the suit was announced, the share value of Goodness went from $1 to 40 cents a share. And it tanked. So they've sued for compensatory damage, which is what you sue for when you breach a contract, but also for punitive damages. Now, this is in Canadian court, so I don't know exactly all their provisions for punitive damages, but in a contract, it's basically a tortious breach. You intentionally did things. You breached your fiduciary obligations. You lied, you cheated, you stole, things like that. So we're going to spank you in tort damages for your breach of contract, okay? Now, This story is very light on details, and I've been on both sides of disputes like this. So you hear one side story, be assured there's another side of the story. Okay. But in a bigger sense, what we're seeing in California across the country is people who jumped in the industry real quick, and now they're holding a shit sandwich. It can't pay for itself. It's underwater. They're trying to dump these companies. Now, I'm involved in several of these right now, and putting together a concise agreement is critical here. Sometimes I use a service agreement because they want to get in and take a company over quickly. We have shareholder transitions. In California, you have to do a two-step process. You have to have cooperation. You can't sell an entire license. You can sell 80% in one jump and then the next 20 in another. So we've got a lag time here of cooperation. So the story from this is that you're going to see more litigation over people backing out of deals, or also buying a company and find out there's more debt than what they were told. And now everyone's going to sue for fraud and misrepresentation. So stand by. The Full Employment Act for lawyers is on its way as the market continues to struggle. So there you have it.
Dale, what percentage of deals, like, okay, how many purchases that you've started on a deal go through? What percentage? Like when you watch them like start the negotiation, would you say?
Well, in my world, it's about 50%, I would say. Okay.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I see way worse on my world, and my job is way different. I clean up people's messes of businesses. So like of course I see bigger shit sandwiches, and apparently underwater shit sandwich is the new word of the day.
It is. There are a lot of the cases I have, and when they're underwater, it's just a nightmare. There's no bankruptcy available. So
what happens to the bread when you eat a shit sandwich underwater?
It would just be a shitty submarine, Rico.
It melts in your mouth. Melts in your mouth.
Call it a torpedo.
Well, it's a Wednesday for sure, guys. Happy hump day, y'all.
San Pedro torpedoes.
And Dale, just so you know, Dale, Verano is an MSO. They're in Nevada and a few other states, and this is going to be held in Canadian court.
It is under Canadian law, I'm going to assume.
Yeah,
but there may be spinoffs from this in the States, because if Veranos have this kind of a problem there, you can bet that other people are going to start looking seriously at their relationships with them. And litigation's the name of the game right now.
Yep, but Verano does have a pretty hefty tax debt still too to the federal government. So this shall continue,
and they'll come collect.
Yes, exactly right. Oh man. Racing.
Oh shit! Am I supposed to do the outro? My bad. 1 second.
Yeah, bro. Come on.
I did sound music or like fucking sad music just to like stall out for a second.
No, we're good. I'm about to wing this one. All right, let's fucking do it. All right. Thank you all for getting high at 9 again with us. You can always find us Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific or high noon on the East Coast. Big shout out to our audience, our supporters for tuning in daily and listening to the insanity that hits us every single morning upside the head, but we like to call it cannabis industry. Thank you to all the haters for out there continuously talking shit. I hope you didn't brush your teeth this morning and you have a N95 mask on. You smell that shit because you're blessed. Huge thank you to True Classic, LAXCC, for helping us keep the lights on. Thank you to correspondents from all over the globe tapping in and keeping us on top of things. Thank you to Cannabis for giving us a reason to do all the things that we do each and every weekday morning, even though we probably shouldn't. And thank you, 3 is for Media, for helping us create the space in this cannabis miniverse. And also Jaja Simone out there in Clubhouse, making sure she's pinning up shit and throwing them down. Thank you all for tuning in for another episode of High at 9 News. My name is Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street. And remember, when life gives you no place else to turn, you can always turn the fuck up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. It's hump day.
You are tuned in to the High at 9 News Hour, where you will hear from cannabis industry experts and professionals from around the country talk about important topics while shining light on global issues and discussing cannabis as it relates to politics, regulation and reform, data and technology, science, research and medicine, family and parenting, art, celebs and entertainment, fitness, sports, mental health and wellness, and plant-based medicines and enthogenics. Together, we are building a stronger community, fighting the stigma and creating change. With your hosts, Jason Beck, Rico Lamitte, and Nicole West, joined by special industry expert correspondents from around the country and daily antics brought to you by Cannabis. Coming to you live Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time. Thank you for getting high at 9 with us.